Hello, I'm Tina Oelke and your instructor for Psych 155. Today we're going to discuss the historical perspective of psychology, the who is who and what is what. I've often been told that it can be confusing keeping the names in schools differentiated from each other, and hopefully by the time this lesson is done, you'll have a better understanding. The first thing that you might find handy is to print off the PowerPoints, which you can find on the resources page of the classroom. If you navigate to the resources page, you'll see under the Chapter Resources heading the blue hyperlink for Chapter 1. Click there and it will bring up the PowerPoint. Once it opens, you can then set your print options. I suggest changing it to the Notes view. So if you go to File, Print, if you check the full page slides, you can check the option for 3 slides, and that changes it to Notes view. I also suggest changing it to print in black and white. If you have the option on your printer, I would also suggest changing it from one-sided to print on both sides. We will only be doing a portion of the slides for today's lesson, the historical section. You will be responsible for learning the entire chapter on your own. So we're going to start today on the slide that shows structuralism. Psychology is only about 130 years old, and it starts with structuralism. Structuralists analyze sensations, images, and feelings into basic elements. For example, a person might look at an object and be asked to report exactly just what they saw, or to break down all sensation when biting into an orange. Structuralism died out in the 1900s because it produced 2 individualized results. What one person experienced might be different for another person. William Wundt is known as the father of psychology and what's called introspection. Wundt was born in Germany in 1832. Initially, he wasn't a good student. He came around, though, and became an experimental physiologist. He actually started the very first psychological laboratory where he conducted introspective studies. He had people analyze their inner observations, sometimes as many as 10,000 times. Edward Titchener was Wundt's student, and he can be credited for bringing structuralism to America. At the same time that structuralism was happening in Germany, a man named William James was coming up with a scientific approach called Functionalism in America. Functionalism explains the purpose or function of behavior instead of the analysis and description of it as is in structuralism. Functionalists wanted to know the hows and whys of behavior. William James was known as the father of American psychology. While functionalism as a school was also short-lived, its influences can be seen in education, evolutionary, and industrial organizational psychology. Gestalt Psychology started in Germany as well. It started with Wertheimer, who studied sensation and perception. Gestalt psychologists believe that the present moment is more important to self than understanding the why. It focuses on the present, the here and now, and awareness rather than analysis. Gestalt ideas are part of cognitive psychology, a field that focuses on perception, learning, memory, thought processes, and problem solving. A Gestalt perception can be seen here, where the eye tends to fill in the blanks and see both of these figures as circles rather than as a series of dots or a broken line. In Austria, a very important person, Freud, was coming about. He was originally born in the former Czech Republic and then moved to Austria. While he was very smart, it did take him 8 years to get through medical school because he was interested in so very many things. He first studied to become a neurologist, but unfortunately ran out of money and decided to become a medical doctor instead. He was considered another pioneer of his field in that he was the first to treat hysterical women and nervous disorders. Now, Freud is very controversial in the field because he thought that what a lot of person thinks is linked back to their childhood. In his therapy practice called Psychoanalysis, the clients tell everything that's on their mind. Freud then looks for the hidden meaning. For example, if I came in and said that I had cereal this morning and I was tired of it, he might have me explore if there was a time in my childhood when I felt I had to continue in something that I didn't want to. Perhaps I was repressing resentment toward my mother who told me no all the time, and the cereal really stood for all the things that I couldn't do. As you can see, Freud believed in the unconscious, and there is so much under the surface that we're unaware of. He felt that if you can uncover those traumatic repressed events, you can free yourself and therefore heal. Behaviorism is a field in psychology that is influential today. Its premise is that the science of behavior focuses on observable behavior only. Unlike psychoanalysis, there is nothing hidden or no deeper meaning. It is everything that is seen or directly measured. John Watson was practicing a form of therapy called behaviorism in the U.S. He's also controversial. He was a famous practitioner who was a professor at Johns Hopkins University. He was once a recognized authority on babies, and he was controversial for his experiment called Little Albert. Watson believed that he could teach people to fear, so he got an 8-month-old baby, a rat, and a steel bar. He took the rat up to the baby, and at first the baby wasn't scared. Then Watson would hit the steel bar loudly whenever the rat came near the baby, scaring it. Pretty soon the baby started to cry whenever Watson would put the rat near it, sound or no sound. He taught the baby to fear the rat. We're now moving into the modern perspectives of psychology, the ones that are currently being practiced. The next few slides will give you a brief taste of what we'll be delving into more deeply toward the end of the term. The first perspective, the psychodynamic perspective, is a modern form of psychoanalysis. It focuses on a development of the sense of self and the motives behind a person's behavior. However, unlike psychoanalysis, its basis behind behavior isn't sexual. The behaviorist perspective is updated with B.F. Skinner. Skinner followed the teaching of Watson. Remember, he was a behaviorist too. And he believed that psychology is something that is scientifically driven, not something that's in the mind or controlled by thoughts, but rather it's based on behaviors. He was famous by an experiment called Skinner's box, which we'll study later in the term. Behaviorism is still used as a form of therapy today. It's used for anxiety disorders, ADHD, OCD, and to help people lose weight or stop smoking. Anything that you would want to change a behavior. The humanistic perspective is more rooted in philosophy than psychology, in that it aims to help people answer questions such as the meaning of their existence. Humanists also believe that people have free will and that they have freedom to choose their own destiny. Founders of humanism include Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. A picture of Rogers is included on the slide. Rogers was instrumental to the field of psychology, stretching across perspectives with his principles of unconditional regard, or accepting the client where they are, no matter what they bring into the session. Again, we'll get more into this later on in the term. The humanistic perspective also includes the human potential, or the ability of one person to become the very best person they could be. This is called self-actualization, or achieving the full potential. The cognitive perspective focuses on cognitions, memory, intelligence, perception, problem-solving, and learning. The sociocultural perspective focuses on relationship between social behavior and culture. It looks at the big picture of a person and their environment. The biopsychological perspective combines what's going on in the body with behaviors. Finally, the evolutionary perspective looks at shared characteristics and sees behavior as an adaptive or survival value. This concludes what we'll be covering in our PowerPoint mini lesson. Now I'd like to take a look at the reflective log assignment. So if you navigate back to our classroom, go to the collaboration page. If we click on the reflective log and to the Chapter 1 assignment, it asks that in number 3 that you suggest ideas for future research designed to advance knowledge on the concepts of the chapter, or to apply the material learned in the chapter to a current news issue or to experiences in your own life as the meat of this assignment. I suggest that you not only consider the concepts that you heard on this presentation, but also what you've learned in the rest of the chapter. Some interesting things to reflect upon would be the ethical considerations for research in psychology, or perhaps experiments. Have you ever been part of an experiment? Would you be part of one? Well, you could tie ethics to that too. What ethical considerations would you want covered before being part of an experiment? Or maybe consider research. Have you done research in the past? Or what areas would you like to see research done in psychology? Or what have you seen covered in the news recently that you'd like to comment on that relates to psychology? There are a lot of ideas out there from Chapter 1. I think that you could have a lot of fun with it. I can't wait to read your logs.